of the world, top of
Hi guys, and welcome to today's edition of our Wonder Women podcast, the main podcast for the business magazine for women.com. In our podcast, just like in our magazine, we're focused on promoting women's voices in business, technology, STEM, politics, sports, arts, and culture. My name is Monica Antohi, and I'm the founder of the business magazine for women.com and the usual host of this podcast. But today, we're sharing with you a podcast where I was the guest, not the host. I was invited to do a recording with the Turn Knowledge to Profit podcast producers. We spoke on entrepreneurship and we talked about the reasons why we even started the business magazine for women, as well as somehow we touched on resilience and grit and self-motivation and sticking to your instincts and not paying any heed to any naysayers. I think you're starting to know me, and you will not be surprised when my passion keeps coming through in this interview. So I'm very excited to share this recording with you. To check out the entire episode, please follow the links at the bottom of the podcast. There's two things that I like to mention before I get to the recording. One of them is that our summer issue is out. So the summer issue of the Business Magazine for Women is out, and in it we talk about venture capital, women-owned startups, as well as the business of cannabis, aka weed, and the women that are shaping that industry. And we'll also introduce you to the other half, the first man in our magazine, His Royal Highness Prince Constantine of the Netherlands. And if you've ever thought of working remote or taking a year off and traveling the world, we have about 5 countries where you can do that for really, really cheap. So check out the summer issue at thebusinessmagazineforwomen.com/magazine. And on the second point, we'd like to say a big thank you to everybody that's been supporting us and helping spread our message. We're extremely grateful for your support. No, we're not a nonprofit, but we're women-owned, women-led, women-focused, promoting women in business, technology, STEM, politics, sports, and arts and culture. To join our very supportive tribe, please go to Patreon, spelled patreon.com/Wonder Women Podcast, and make your pledge. Thanks. Now let's get you to our conversation.
You're listening to Jannelle McCauley on the EWN Radio Network.
This is Turn Knowledge to Profit, where entrepreneurs like you find the insights, experience, and tools they need to earn more, make a bigger impact in the world, and create the freedom to live a life others only dream of. Now, here are your hosts for Turn Knowledge to Profit, entrepreneurs, speakers, and authors, Jannelle and Michael McCauley.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us on Turn Knowledge to Profit. I'm Jannelle McCauley, and along with my co-host Michael, each week we bring you the insights, ideas, and tools that you need to earn more, make a bigger impact, and create the freedom to live a life others only dream of.
You're going to want to take notes, so grab a pen and paper, and let's get started.
This week in our Business Builder segment, Michael and I will be talking about the importance of having your own branded process. We'll be giving you tips for leveraging your process to quickly grow your business. That's up in a bit in our Business Builder, so stay tuned. First up, it's our success interview. Today we are talking with the founder and editor-in-chief of the Business Magazine for Women, Monica Antohi. Her magazine is the voice for women in business. It covers everything from business and technology to culture and lifestyle, and all from the perspective of today's businesswomen. I know she's got a lot of great insights to share and strategies that you can use to help you gain clarity, purpose, and direction in your business and your life. Welcome, Monica.
Hi, Jannelle. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited for our conversation today because I think you'll have some great insights to share. And as we get started, I always love to ask my guests to share a little bit with our listeners about your business and how you started it. And I'd love to know specifically what led you to start a magazine for women.
That's actually a really good question because, as you know, there's plenty of magazines out there for women, but a lot of them are in the lifestyle section, and there's nothing really business for like a specific magazine that covers business. And one day I went to like Barnes & Noble, and I sat in front of the magazine rack, like a complete magazine rack. Imagine a really, really big wall of magazines. And I sat on one of the benches in front, and I just tried to take it all in. And I'm like, okay, so let's do an experiment. So I looked at all the covers, and I just took all the covers with like nature on it, or all the covers that didn't have faces on them, okay, faces, people specifically. So I took those out, and then I looked at the ones that had male and female on them. So there were plenty of male, not that many women. First realization. And then the second realization, which was bigger and more important, was the fact that when you looked at all the business magazines, all the magazines basically that showed men, the men were dressed in business suits, very confident, very proud of who they were. You can see that. And even though you couldn't necessarily read the headlines on the magazines because I was kind of far, but you can still see the faces. You can see the confidence coming through, right? So they were dressed in business magazines. It was, they were comfortable. They were looking very professional, sometimes not necessarily wearing a business suit, but looking extremely like professional people, right? And then you looked at the magazines that had women's faces on them. And they were very sexed up, they were very young. A lot of them were lifestyle magazines, so a lot of them were supermodels on the cover, or actresses, or pop culture stars, completely sexed up with sometimes just a bra and shorts, or like a bikini and a blouse, or or just in a bathing suit, or basically never looking professional, never looking like the business women. So when you look at that and you see that there's this massive gap, to me it was just like, what is happening? How do we get here? And it's very simple. We're at this point because that's how society views women. Society views women and appreciates women young, honestly white, and skinny, right? But that's not how society is. And that's not how women in business are. Women in business are not going to stay young forever, even though society kind of expects that of us. And women are not going to go to work in a bikini top, even though a lot of companies want us to look very sexy when we go to work. And, I don't want to necessarily get into that, but one of the companies that I worked with, for before, corporate, I was asked to wear high heels, and I was sent home when I didn't wear a skirt. So, like knee-length skirts. So there are specific requirements for women in corporate, and I'm hoping that's changed since then. But I'm still hearing, accounts of that where women they're expected to be sexier. They're expected to look younger. We're expected to dye our hair. So we don't show any gray hairs. And so basically we're cutting out most of the business world, most of the women in the business world, right? So what we're showing society, because that's what magazines do, they show you what society is, right? You're seeing men in business suits, so they're leaders, right? And you're seeing women that need help, that are working out, that are, you know what I mean? So it's a completely different perspective on how we see men and how we see women. So to me, it's just like a massive light bulb, and I was like, okay, so we need to do something about this, because I know I am a woman in business. At that point, I was running my own company for 10 years in marketing, and, I was hiring people and, like specific projects, and, we were dealing with decent clients, and to me, like, I was in my 30s, and I was like, it's impossible for me, okay, to compete with an 18-year-old for a cover of a magazine in lifestyle. That's clear, right? Because it's lifestyle, and that's all we care about. But at the same time, I don't need to compete with that, because that is not who I am. I'm a woman in business. Where are the magazines for women in business? There are none. And the women on covers of like Forbes or The Economist or any, Fortune, or entrepreneur or fast company, there were so very few women on the covers at that point that it became very, very clear to me that we have to have a business magazine showcasing women. And that's kind of what we are, and that's kind of how we're being seen. We're being seen as Forbes for women, basically. So whatever we're covering is Forbes quality, and it's basically, but it's from a woman's point of view, which it's kind of the 100%, 180-degree difference with Forbes.
Interesting.
That's kind of a very long answer.
No, it's interesting. I love the way, because I know Michael and I we love to go to the bookstore and Barnes & Noble and sit and look at the magazines and do that. I've never done an activity like that where I've really done an assessment, but I think there's a message in that for a lot of entrepreneurs is just take a step back and look at what's right in front of you. There's so much data and so much information. And, there's only 2% of the women making, $1 million, and that's, I think, in alignment kind of with what you're saying. And that's what I love about the eWomen Network mission, creating a community of 1 million women making $1 million in annual revenue. So
Absolutely.
This goes hand in hand with that. Interesting. So what kind of challenges did you come up against putting this together? Because it's so different. You're going into a market that's got a lot of competition out there. So what kind of challenges did you run into, and how did you overcome them?
Well, there's multiple quote-unquote challenges, but I don't really look at them as challenges at all because honestly, I don't think we have competition except for Forbes and Fortune and Entrepreneur and the magazines they have been doing business reporting and editorials for 100 years or 50 years or what have you, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to women, business magazines, there's really not that many, and which actually is surprising, completely surprising. And the fact that we actually made top 10 digital business magazines for women just this past month tells you something. We've been in business for, going on 3 years, and we're already in the top 10.
Wow,
and
congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's a very big step. It's a really important thing, but that doesn't necessarily tell you how great we are from my point of view. Even though I really believe in what we're doing, and I'm hoping you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the quality of our articles and the topics that we're discussing, and how relevant we are with everything that's going on right now. Besides the awesome quality of the work that we're putting in and the people that we're interviewing, it's still kind of, how do we make top 10, when we're just in business for a very short period of time. We've made top 10, first of all, because we're great at what we're doing, and second of all, because there's not that many business magazine for women out there. And we made this top 10 out of Canada, United States, UK, and Australia. So to me, that doesn't mean that we're awesome. We are, yeah. But the bigger part of it is that there's not that many business magazines for women out there. And I really wish there were more because, they're needed, first of all. So that being said, obstacles, things to get over. Well, I never actually started a magazine. I was working in publishing for the previous 6.5 years before I started my magazine in January of 2016. So I had about 6.5 years of knowledge of publishing. And, I have 2 years of college, and specifically with not 2 years of college, I have actually a degree. But before I got my degree, I took 2 years of journalism and psychology, so I do have a lot of background for what I'm doing, but actually doing it versus having the education for it, they're kind of different, if you know what I mean. So
that's very true.
So having the education and all that stuff is completely different. As you starting an endeavor all on your own and trying to figure out how to get it all done and all that stuff. So the challenges that have come, to me, I looked at them as everything else. It's yet another thing that I can, do really well at, and it's yet another thing that I can, master, basically. So, that's kind of how I look at the challenges, because yes, there's stuff that you're not going to know. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is, if somebody offers you a job and you only know how to do, you don't know how to do it all, just say yes and do it. So you just go take the job and do it. So because women are very, very afraid of accepting a job, even applying for a job, if they're not, like, if they're looking at the description of the job description, they're like, okay, I know this. And if they're not 100% sure that they can do it, they're most likely not going to apply. Guys look at it and go, oh, I know how to do about 40% of this. I'm going to apply. So, right? So I'm going to take, I actually took a little, yes, and I took a little bit of advice from the guys, and basically I said, well, I don't know how to do all of this, but I'm going to actually go do it, because why not? I can break down everything, because I have, like I said, marketing background and coding background and social media, and basically I was running a digital marketing company, so I know how to do all of the content creation and all, social media, like I said, and all that stuff. So, and on top of that, I was project management as well. So I know how to break down a project into steps, and then you just attack one step at a time. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. So, I didn't know how to do it all from the beginning, but, one step at a time, you get it all done.
I agree with that. And I also think, and we tell people all the time, say yes, and the how will come together, because we discount our ability, our knowledge, our connections, what we can do. And I believe we're much more versatile. We're much more equipped to do way more than we give ourselves credit for, because women, I believe, and I think you're right, men say, oh, I can do that. That's not that hard. And women say, I have to know how to be perfect before I can say yes. And I think it holds a lot of people back. So we tell people, when they're creating courses, when they're creating programs, they say, well, I can't do it until I have all my content created. Nope. And after conversations, Michael finds that they already have 95% of what they need. It's just not in a format they can use, because they've been doing so much, but they don't see how it all fits together. And that's where tying into your experts and people that do what you don't do is great, but we can do so much more than women give themselves credit for. So I love the fact that you're really pushing that, helping educate people. And I love the fact when looking at your articles, it really looks like you show the whole woman, because you're doing business, tech, culture. It's great to see that there's more pieces that go into it that come together. We need to take a real quick break. I can't believe that we're already halfway through our conversation. But when we come back, I'd love to talk a little bit so you can kind of think about it. I know a lot of people have information, ideas to share. They may even be saying, I have an article I'd love to write. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how you find those people and maybe even some trends that you've identified as soon as we get back. So stay tuned.
Absolutely.
You don't want to miss it. This is Jannelle McCauley, and you're listening to Turn Knowledge to Profit.
You're listening to Jannelle McCauley on the EWN Radio Network.
Welcome back. This is Jannelle McCauley, and you're listening to Turn Knowledge to Profit. If you missed the first half of our conversation today, you absolutely want to go back and listen to it. Today we're talking with Monica Antohi, the founder and editor-in-chief of the Business Magazine for Women, which is really the voice for women in business. And before the break, we talked about, and I love the fact that when I asked the question where Monica said, there's really not competition. We all do things differently, and it's not a challenge. It's an opportunity. And her magazine has just made top 10 digital magazines for women. So that's pretty amazing in just 3 short years. And what I'd love to do in the second part of our conversation, Monica, is have you share just a little bit, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that are saying, I've got an article or something that I'd love to share and get out there. So how do you look for articles for people to write? How can people use a platform like this to get their message out there and make a bigger difference?
So thanks so much for that question, Jannelle. Appreciate it. The way we build content is we do interviews, kind of like you guys do, and we do in person, and we do analysis of what's happening in the industry. But a lot of the content that we have is, in a way, user-generated, as in the interviews, and experts in their field submit articles to us, or we encourage them to write on specific topics. So, yeah, basically, there's a lot of ways for authors to get into publishing and to get into the magazine industry, because, if you just reach out to the editor, they're usually quite interested in seeing what you have to say. So there's ways of approaching editors. For us, it's super simple. Just send an email to the editor, and if that's what we're doing, and it fits with how the magazine is being put together and what we're doing, then your article can go into the magazine. And if it doesn't necessarily fit with the theme of that specific issue, your article could go into the website. So the exposure is there anyway. It's not necessarily about that, because we have a massive social media presence that basically promotes all the articles that are on the website. So it's more about, before you even do any of that, see what the publishing house is focused on, what their interests are, what their audience is, and present a couple of topics to the editor and say, hey, I would love to write about this. This is my background, and I'm an expert in this field. I would like to see if you guys are interested in something like, I don't know, whatever topic you're interested in writing about that pertains to that publication. So that's kind of how we've gotten some of the articles, and the ones that we're not soliciting, the ones that we're being solicited on. So and again, you don't have to have an article written already, and you can kind of work on that with the editor, with our editor or whoever, whichever publication you're planning on publishing on. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of cover it for you?
No, that helps. So what kind of themes come up or trends are you identifying, either from people who are reaching out that want to be a writer or be included, or from the type of things that you are seeing? Because I think trends and identifying those early are really helpful for business owners, and especially women in business.
Absolutely. So we do those meetings about 6-7 times a year on specifically what's happening, especially across the U.S. But because we're English speaking, so we have an audience, in Australia, in the UK, and in Canada, and in some Europe, some parts in Europe as well. Mm-hmm. We're looking at what's happening worldwide. And the topics that have mattered in the last 3 to 6 months have been the numbers of women in venture capital or investing, and the women in finance. And the numbers of women in finance are super low. So we're very interested in talking with women in finance and getting their point of view on what's happening and how they're growing their businesses and the such. Another topic that's been very important to us, being that it's kind of taken over the conversation in the country, is women in cannabis, in the business of cannabis. So to see the women that are thriving, like leading their fields and setting up trends for the next 12 to 20 years, and not just for their states, but for the entire country, because they're helping shape the legislation that is being passed in their state, which is copied by other states. So mm-hmm. These women are absolutely phenomenal, and the reason why we looked at women in cannabis specifically is because the numbers of women in cannabis at the C-level, executive level, is 10% over every other industry in the country. So we have to look at it to understand why that number is so big. So we delved into it and figured it out. That's in our issue 3, the summer issue 2018. But for the fall and for the December issue, we're looking at women in STEM, because we're talking so much about going into space, and tech is so important, and STEM is super important, and the numbers of women in STEM is kind of low, and the number of women in tech is dropping, actually. We need to figure out ways to keep women in tech and to bring women back into tech. So that's why we're focusing on that, because we need to have that voice. We need to have women at the table when they're designing an app. So that app is actually made for women as well. So when you sit at a table and all the designers are men, but they're building an app for women, they're not going to, it's lost. The conversation is lost. You know what I mean? So we need to have at least one woman, at the decision-making table when it comes to technology. So that's one of the other very important topics that we're talking about. We're also diving deep into politics, and because 2018 is an important, year for the political situation in our country. So we're looking at companies and nonprofits and foundations that are promoting and teaching women how to get into politics, how to learn, how to get out there. And I'm not just talking about becoming a senator, or, I'm not just talking about these highly visible political offices, but I'm also talking about school boards and local legislation, the people that affect your life every day. And we need to get into these offices quick, and we need to make the world more equitable for women. And the only way to do that is having representation at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the topics that are super important this year for us.
That's fascinating. And it's interesting you say with the nonprofits, because one of the things that eWomen Network has done, which I just love, because I love the philanthropic side of being able to give back and to be able to support organizations, is they put together a whole series of training that's free to nonprofits through the eWomenNetworkFoundation.org. Awesome. that nonprofits can go in. It doesn't cost them a penny. Training on topics that can help nonprofits become stronger, get some education, learn the language, learn some of the things that they need to know to be able to build their boards and put together a strong organization. So I love that.
And there's plenty of women that that are willing and able and knowledgeable, have the knowledge to come on the board and help the nonprofit. There's plenty of women. And then when you talk about education, there's so many free resources out there for women, not just for women, for anybody, because we're all equal. We're all needing knowledge. So resources like Coursera, super important. You can get your MBA online for basically nothing. So you can go to edX, not TEDx, edX, which is a branch of MIT, digital, and they'll, you have really great classes. Stanford has a digital option as well, like that's free. So there's a lot of free learning tools out there, not to mention podcasts, not to mention, ebooks. And there's so much that you can learn if you just start searching a little bit. And we have a lot of those resources on our website for anybody that wants to learn more.
That's great. I'll have to definitely check those out, because those are some new resources I hadn't heard about. So, one of the things that we talked about in the first part of our conversation was kind of your journey to get where you were. But I'd love to ask do you have some, and maybe you've got some from the stories you've had in your magazine also, but maybe some lessons that people can learn from being a startup, from getting started? Because it's not a simple journey, but it can be a really powerful one. Do you have maybe one or two things that you could share that might help our listeners as they get in that slump or they get stuck and don't know what to do next?
Absolutely, and it's happening to a lot of people. It doesn't matter how driven you are. It really happens to everybody, or at least most everybody. The fact that you could be overwhelmed with what you're doing, you realize just how big of an endeavor you've taken on, and you just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do now, and I don't know if I want to continue. The biggest thing that matters is your drive. The biggest thing that matters is, do you want to change the world for the better? Because with what you're doing, you're making the world better. So do you want to do that? Do you want to have something that you're proud of at the end of the day? And if you do, you'll find the resources to get it done. Emotionally, you'll pick yourself back up because you have to. Like we're saying, you pick yourself up by your bootstraps. That's kind of the idea. You have to do that. You have to be able to self-motivate. You have to be able to, it's all about resilience. It's all about not giving up. It's all about grit. It's all about, being strong in your beliefs and kind of ignoring the naysayers. You're going to have people in your family who say, oh, you can't do that. You can have friends that you've known for 20 years that are going to say, oh, you can't do that. And you're going to have a lot of people that are going to say no to you, but you know better. So because you know better, because you know your product, you know what you're doing, and all I'm telling you is, like, don't give up because you're 5 minutes away from making it. So, open up your heart and go forward. Listen to your heart and listen to your gut and just go forward because you know what you're doing. And if you need support, reach out. There's a lot of resources for female entrepreneurs out there, whatever state you're in. Just go to a meetup. There's a bunch of meetups that have women entrepreneurs, and just go listen to them and go to startups meetup. Go to meetups that are specifically for startups because they're really driven, right? They're really, really driven, and they're there to support one another. So don't give up. Just go after what you want to go after. Do not think that you need to have 100% of your product done, 100% of your book done for you to start promoting your book. Just go for it now. Go for it now and finish it as it's happening. And
I love that.
It's going to work.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said, the question, do you want to change the world? And it's interesting when you talk about persistence and you talk about making it happen. In May, we published Turn Knowledge to Profit, The 6 Secrets of Successful Speakers, Authors, and Coaches. And success secret number 5 is persistence drives results. And I love this quote by Walt Disney: all of our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. I think so many people sit there and think, someday or when I'm ready, and I encourage everyone just to get into action and do it. But I love that advice that you provided, and letting go of those naysayers. I can't believe
the naysayers. They're going to kill you. The naysayers are going to kill you. The naysayers, if you allow their voice to be stronger than your voice, you just need to hang up the business, give somebody else the keys and just walk out.
Oh, that's so true.
But the bigger thing here is yes, persistence and conviction, strength of conviction, and don't ever give up, because there's only 2% women startups that get funded. Out of 100 startups, 2% of them are women, okay? And 0.6% are Black women. So get out there and at least start, at least apply, at least move forward, because we cannot ever have an equal balance in this country. We can never change the media narrative if we only see men on the cover of business magazines and women on the cover of lifestyle magazines. All right, so we need women to put on the cover of business magazines. And there's plenty. There's a lot of successful women out there, but not plenty. Let me backtrack. There's we're starting to get that, but we need a lot more for it to be equal. So don't give up. You always believe that it's going to happen because you're working hard at it, and it's, go forward, basically.
Well, I love the fact that you've really put this together and, with the Business Magazine for Women, and that you're really giving people a platform to have a different dialogue and a different conversation. And I thank you for that so much. I can't believe our time is up. But how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your magazine and be part of the conversation?
Absolutely. So we're at thebusinessmagazineforwomen.com. And we're also on Facebook. We're on Twitter or Instagram. You just got to, either you go to our website and find us because we have all the social links on there, or you can find me on Facebook. You can find me personal accounts at monicaantohi.com. That too. But it's Monica Antohi on Facebook. So I'm trying to stay all focused on one thing, and it's like my brain is going on every issue. But so you can find us on the website again at thebusinessmagazineforwomen.com. We also have a podcast called Wonder Women, where we're featuring amazing women, from every industry, the Wonder Women of every industry, like we're mentioning. And in our next issue, we're actually going to be focusing on STEM and future astronauts and that generation of amazing people. So that's kind of what we're doing. So find us on YouTube and iTunes and Instagram and SoundCloud at Wonder Women Podcast. And on the website, we're at thebusinessmagazineforwomen.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I love the fact that you're going to be talking about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It's so important. And I know a hot topic for my 11-year-old granddaughter. She loves it all. So thank you so much for your time today and for all your great information and everything that you're doing.
I greatly appreciate you guys coming on. I really do. Thanks so much, everybody. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
Top of the world. Top of the
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. That's the interview. I wanted to thank Jannelle and Michael McCauley of Turn Knowledge to Profit podcast for inviting me on their show. If you like to hear the entire episode from start to finish with all the other great business advice and ideas, check out the links included with our podcast. Next week, we're back on with our own Wonder Women, so join us in our efforts to change how women in business and technology are represented in the media. Help us showcase the women that will inspire this generation and the next generation. Make your way to patreon.com/Wonder Women Podcast and show your support for us so that we can create more opportunities for female founders and women entrepreneurs to be seen, heard, and get funded. The music for our podcast is graciously provided by our very own Wonder Woman Cheryl B. Engelhardt. Check out her music and get your own free music bundle at cbemusic.com. That's all for us today. See you all next time, and remember to subscribe. Bye.